Will they face the demons? Put them to the test.
Hey.
And there kind of on it. We're kind of up to it.
It's the chaos, remember? That's how this stuff works.
It is the chaos. Guess what, everybody? It is Sunday night. It is 8 p.m. Do you know where your cryptids are? We're going to try to get through this with as very little technical difficulties as possible.
Oh, what's that? Come on.
Oh, God, I don't know what that is. Laptop froze up on me last night, and it's giving me a fright tonight.
Hey, our number one fan is in the house. How you doing tonight, Tammy?
Tammy is on and live and watching. We're live on Facebook, dbkinvestigations.com. We're live on YouTube, DBK Investigations. We're live on Twitch, DBK Investigations.
You know, I'm kind of stoked for tonight. Kind of.
Tonight is going to be interesting.
Yes, definitely so, right? Doing a little Oregon coast tonight.
So tonight we're taking on, and we're back, and we're going. I don't know what's going on with this thing.
Uh-oh. We're taking on the cryptids of Oregon? Right on.
We're taking on two lesser known cryptids of Oregon.
Well, are they really lesser known? At least one of them. Well,
actually, they're both very much lesser known to a certain degree.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say yeah, because I was talking to a coworker and he didn't even know about one of them, and then I mentioned the other one and he didn't even know about that one either. So hey, I guess so.
All right, so first up, we will be reading from this book, Oregon's Ghosts and Monsters. This is the one that I
was going to say, isn't this the one you were kind of playing around with?
To have the 1983 book.
Mm-hmm.
And for everybody at home, we will try to get...
Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
We're going to try to get through this, hopefully, without too much difficulty with the chaos that reigns.
We're trying. I swear sometimes we've got to be cursed with things. But yes, we'll be reading.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say you should change it from DBK Unleashed to Chaos Unleashed. I mean, it seems like every week there's something that's going on.
Yeah, that just seems to be our deal. For everybody at home, we don't get paid. We don't accept money. This is all on our own two dimes. So if we've got equipment malfunctions, internet failures, the dog tripping over the wire going into the router, then that's just kind of on us.
It is. We are not all. Alrighty.
This is just simply for the love of the game. So yes. First up will be the Devil's Lake Monster.
I'll get her going and getting rid of this one first. Sorry.
We're gonna hit it up first, and then we'll get to our secondary in a little bit. So the Devil's Lake Monster is Devil's Lake down by Lincoln City. I did talk to my cousin who lives on the reservation down there, and I said, "What do you know about this?" And he goes, "Well, nothing, but that might be the Cowitz tribe on the opposing side of the lake, because they hold ceremonies to appease the monster." So that he's like, "Yeah, that's not my tribe. That's the other tribe."
Do they hold these ceremonies today still?
Yeah, they have them once a year. It's just kind of they go down. I think they light like a fire. They make offerings. It's just something that the tribe does. I can't confirm that, of course. I can just say what I've kind of heard, that members of the tribe go down to the lake shore once a year. They light a little fire. They do a little drumming, some dancing.
A little celebration.
They do something. We don't know what it is. But some people have said that they're appeasing the spirits. Some people have said that it's just a celebration. We don't know. I'm not a Cowitz. My cousin's not a Cowitz. So we wouldn't know what's going on with that one.
Right. Yes. Let's do this, and then we'll just throw it in the wastebasket.
Now, there was a story on a podcast, another podcast that I listened to. But I couldn't find the transcript of it, so I'm going to summarize that one because it was kind of ridiculous.
How long ago did you take part in this?
This was about last year.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't take part in this podcast.
Well, I mean,
it was just one I was just listening to.
That's why I meant
about a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago. The caller calls into the show, and he says that he's in a wheelchair, and they wheeled him to the end of the dock to do some fishing, and his dad and his uncle went back to the truck, and he's out there, and a horrible-looking mermaid-style creature, big fluke tail instead of legs, claws, had tried to drag him off of the dock and knocked him out of his wheelchair. And it took the dad and the uncle beating it with boat oars to get it to let go of this kid. But the thing is, that's the only one I've heard, so I have never heard of a killer mermaid at Devil's Lake.
I've heard many different things that happen at Devil's Lake, or what is supposedly there. Let me rephrase that. But I've not seen or witnessed anything there myself, because I don't think I've stopped to look at it.
Well, it's only 20 feet deep.
Yeah.
It's got a little river connecting it to the ocean. It's like the world's shortest river.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they do a lot of boating. There's not a lot of fishing on it. The water's really crystal clear. Only 20 feet deep at the absolute max. So we're not talking Nessie. We're not talking the Flathead Lake Monster. A lot of reports come in as it being a giant octopus, which, if you want to hit the skeptics corner early, we do have the giant Pacific octopus off the coast of Oregon. Yeah. We've got a small little lake. It's kind of almost like a tide pool. So there's your cryptid corner, that if people are talking about seeing this, that could be what it is. But it's story time, boys and girls. Pull up a chair, get your favorite cup of hot chocolate.
Let's do the story first, and then we'll just tear apart the story after the fact.
All right. So good old Mike Helm writes, the lake in northern Lincoln County that we know as Devil's Lake was known to the Indians before the arrival of the white man as Indian Lake. Chief Fleetfoot, legend tells us, slipped his canoe into the water one dark night, intending to cross the lake and meet a certain young woman on the other side. Moonbeams glittered as the canoe slipped across the water. Suddenly, huge fingers, like the tentacles of a giant octopus, rose from the depths of the lake, encircling the canoe, and pulled the screaming Chief Flatfoot beneath the surface. The Indians, hoping to pacify the monsters so that they could use the lake without fear, held a feast on the lake shore and dedicated it to the monster. Drums began to beat, and the Indians chanted louder and louder. Suddenly, a hideous head burst from the lake. A sacrifice was made, and the monster returned to the depths. Today, Lincoln County residents will tell you that it is still a monster in Devil's Lake. In the recent years, it has been described as a 25-foot-long catfish, a floating log covered with algae, or just algae stirred up at night by the wind. Whatever it is, the ancient Indian ceremony seems to have pacified it, because there were no recent reports of the monster claiming any victims. So that's all Mike wrote about Devil's Lake. Short, sweet, to the point. Yes, we are doing Devil's Lake first and foremost. There's not a lot out there on it. It is kind of just a short little. This might be happening. It is a native legend. Like I said, the Grand Ron tribe has no legends on this. My cousin did say maybe it was the Silettes across the bay there. I'm sorry, everybody. We've got a Carl Sagan is in the chat. My friend called Bigfoot Senator. Bigfoot was like 5 shows ago, but yeah, we like Bigfoot.
Yeah, he's our friend. But
So-
going back to that, I mean, yeah, I saw that. I mean, I watched some YouTube thing and saw that statue. It kind of looks like Puff the Magic Dragon.
That's because it's actually called Puff.
Well,
Because
there
of the
you go.
legend of the Devil's Lake history, some people put up this little sign, a happy, magical little sea dragon, basically to make the place more hospitable for families and not to scare people away. So is there a giant Loch Ness Monster style creature sitting on the banks of the lake? Yes, there is. Is there anything else? I don't know.
Dude, there's nothing there. I mean, it's only 20 feet deep. You know, I could see people misidentifying it as the Pacific Northwest Pacific octopus or whatever, or a log or an algae bloom or whatever. But there ain't nothing there. I'm sorry. I'm hitting that skeptic's corner now.
Yeah, because we're going to skip. We're just going to skip back and get to Bandage Man because we got a lot to cover on him.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, this is crap. I mean, I've heard the stories as well that it could have been an octopus. You know, I've heard those stories. And like you said, there's that little river that leads to the ocean. Anything or, you know, hell, for all we know, a sea lion could have gotten in there. You know, and they misinterpreted that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we do have sea lions as far up the river as St. Helens, so.
Exactly. So, I mean, it could be any one of those things, but yeah, there ain't no monster in there. I just think people are just looking to try and create, you know, some sort of legend.
I think what has happened with this is we've taken a Native American legend for a tribe of the region, because I mean, even if you go to like Montana and a lot of Plains Indians, they have these fantastical stories of, you know, giant beasts and creatures and them doing all kinds of sorts of things. So maybe what this is the Siletz Indians had a story, an oral story. You know, we've got our Brothers Grimm. You know, the stories we like to tell, Cinderella, the good ones, the darker ones.
Okay, and how far back? How far back are these stories being told?
These are being told pre-Pioneer days. So I mean, this is some that could have been eons ago.
Yeah, so in theory, this lake, Devil's Lake, it's roughly 20 feet deep now. Could have been a lot deeper back then, and maybe something happened, you know, maybe back then. But sure enough, in the modern age, that little 20-foot deep thing ain't gonna hold no scary monster. I'll just put it that way.
Well, as always, the only way to figure this stuff out is to go on a road trip.
Well, you know, we're gonna be busy for the next few weekends.
Yeah, we are. And then once we're all done with the Ghost Conference, then we're going to be busy doing squatching. Yay!
Exactly. See, we're busy. So, Carl, hang around, you know, in about another month or so. I'm sure we'll have something on Bigfoot again. All right.
So we're going to go ahead and get the Devil's Lake Monster out of here. Boom! You're out.
You're out. Hey, he's still here. What's up? The chaos still reigns, I see.
Oh, the chaos still reigns, yeah, but he should be gone off the screen now.
Anyway.
All right. So then we're going to add to stage El Bandage Mano. El Bandage Hombre. Coming out of Canny Beach.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting. I mean, I've heard the legends, everything. There's just a couple questions I got on this, and I tried to research it today, as a matter of fact, and I still couldn't find nothing on it. So
this
when we
could
get
end
to
up
that
being
point,
one of those local legends.
When we get to that point, I'm going to ask these questions. I want to see if you can answer them.
I will try. Again, we're going to go back to the book, Oregon's Ghosts and Monsters. Now, you got to remember, it came out in 1983. Bridget says she made it. Did I miss anything important? Actually, Bridget, no. We just talked about the Devil's Lake Monster, and there wasn't really much there. You came in the right point of time.
This is perfect right here.
We're talking.
This is
perfect.
meat and
This is
potatoes.
where we want to be.
Meat and potatoes and the chaos all in one.
Now you got to remember, in 1983, reading this story was one. We were doing a coastal trip at the time, and so, you know, we were stopping, camping out a few places. You know, 1,000 trails. So it was like sitting in the trailer and reading the book, and got to the story just before we were in Pacific City, just coming down. And so I'm reading this story, and yeah, I got a little scared. Now, years ago, Bill and I took a road trip down, and we actually went to Cannon Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And
a few times.
We did a video on it. Yeah, we kind of did a video on it. Well, it's like, okay, so in the book, they go to a place called Bill's Tavern. So I took the book with me. We kind of read it in the parking lot before we even started. Well, we kind of shot everything down. We were just like, oh my God, you know, how could it happen? How could this, what transpires in the story happen? Bill's Tavern's in the middle of town. Well, we got to look at it and go, in the 80s, Cannon Beach was smaller. It was not the ocean mecca for people to go to.
Mm-hmm.
So the town has grown since the book has been written. So you got to figure the book was probably written in 81 or 82. So at that point, Cannon Beach was not the Mecca. It was not the big, to do. It wasn't the fancy shops. And Bill's Tavern was actually a little bit more run down at that time. They've revamped it and redone it. And
I was just gonna ask, is
we
it
had
still
asked-
there?
yeah, Bill's Tavern is still there, still new location, but the whole promenade, that whole main road there has been all redone to look, better than Seaside's promenade.
Okay.
So, yeah. So is it really? We got to look back in time. We're paranormal investigators. We shouldn't have judged harshly without reviewing all the evidence. And we said, oh yeah, Bandage Man can't be happening. The little stretch of road where he seems to hang out, the Highway 26 overpass down to Cannon Beach is where he tends to reside.
Right.
So yet again, it is story time, boys and girls.
Your banner still says Devil's Lake Monster.
I haven't changed it.
Ah,
Little off my game tonight.
I see that. Slacker.
Yeah.
That is.
All right. So then. And he writes, this business of hunting down organs, ghosts, and monsters isn't always as easy as you might believe. For instance, consider what happened to me. And the chapter is entitled One Night in Cannon Beach. Ever hear of Bandage Man? I asked the bartender at Bill's Tavern in Cannon Beach late one rainy evening last winter. Grizzled heads turned all around the bar, a row of eyes fixed upon me, and in a sudden barroom silence, I wondered if I'd said something wrong. Wasn't he a logger? Got hurt real bad or something? The bartender, newly arrived from California, pushed a glass of beer across the bar to me. Nah, I'll tell you about the Bandage Man. The old man was half the length of the bar from me, and he said it so quietly that I barely heard. Come on, Maud. He labored down from his perch on the bar stool and slapped a skinny thigh to beckon the fat old hound from where she slept at his feet. He carried his beer to a table near the door and crooked a finger at me as he settled into a comfortable wooden chair. Maud heaved herself under the table with a sigh. Thick rivulets of wind-driven rain rolled down the window as I crossed a smoky, wood-lined room. The old man wore a blue stocking cap and a rust-colored down vest. A thick fringe of gray hair struggled from beneath the cap, and a snowy white beard straggled down across his vest. He leaned comfortably back in the chair, clasped his weather-beaten hands across the stomach, and looked square at me with the clearest blue eyes I've ever seen. See that newspaper article? Yes, before I sat down, gesturing at the wall behind him to his right, where camouflaged in a jumble of similar memorabilia, a yellowed clipping hung from the rusty staples. Injured giant disappears in coastal landslide, blared the headline. We all reckon, the old man said, glancing at the yellow clipping, that there fella became Bandage Man, because it wasn't more than 2 or 3 days later that people began to see him. Lots of people have seen him now, always late at night, usually a stormy night like tonight, and always, except the time he came visiting me and Maud, right there on the same stretch of road where he originally disappeared. He reached down and gave the old dog a little pat on the head. Don't worry, Maud, he said. He ain't going to get us. Famous last words.
Right.
Just then the door blew open and the wind blasted another person into our group. Evening, boys, he said, peeling off the yellow tent of rain gear and tossing it over an empty chair in the corner. Howdy, Emmett, Maud. Evening, Amma. The old man responded without looking up as Maud wheezed and shifted her position slightly. Amma was a wiry old leprechaun with a grin fixed permanently on his kindly, weather-beaten face. His eyebrows were so thick that they knitted together over his nose and blended with the thick gray fringe that straggled around the hairless top of his strikingly shiny head. The effect was that of a large pink egg rising from a tousled gray nest. He drew a chair up to our table, settled back comfortably, and signaled the bartender for a pitcher of beer. What's going on, Emmett? This fella, the old man nodded at me, wants to know about Bandage Man. A glint crept into Armor's steely eyes. He leaned towards me as if to tell me something he didn't want the others to hear. Bandage Man, he said quietly with a sly glance down at Maud, eats dogs. I didn't know if he was serious, but the thought clearly made Maud uncomfortable. She gave Armor a roomy glare and let out a low whine as she tried to slide under Emmett's chair. Armor settled back and took a long drink of his beer. I guess I was the first person to see him after the accident. The speaker, easily the tallest man in the room, stretched out toward our table from his seat at the bar, his lengthy, Levi-clad legs culminating in pointy-toed boots. A cowboy. He leaned against the bar, resting easily on his elbows with a beer mug clasped between leathery hands across his belly. A shy smile revealed a mouthful of wide-spaced teeth. He was a long face, approximately hard, horsey face, an honest and guileless face. This is not a man who will pull my leg, I thought. As everyone in the tavern turned expectantly toward the cowboy, the wind began to moan through the creaks and the gaps in the old wooden building. It shivered the tavern door and lashed the rain in great horizontal sheets against the window. The old building creaked under the onslaught, and it was suddenly much colder inside. The lights flickered and then steadied, and the people in our little group seemed to draw closer together in uncertain light. Maud groaned. Well, said the cowboy, slightly embarrassed at the attention. Of course, I didn't put it together at the time. Nobody did. Sure scared the hell out of me, though. Busted the back window in my pickup, too, remember? Nods of assentment, nervous sips, and a slight murmur as they remembered. But the cowboy reached for his beer mug and told the story anyway for my benefit. It was a mystery still, you know, he began. What happened in that bandaged giant who disappeared from the ambulance? They finished the second search without finding any certificate. But I wasn't thinking about that. He drained his mug and signaled the bartender for another. I was working in Seaside then for a maintenance company. During the summer, I run horses up here and by Elk Creek. Rent them to tourists, but during the winter, well, whatever comes along. We did floors and bathrooms and stuff. Usually worked from about 5 to 11:30 or so. It was a Wednesday night, I remember, because Wednesday was the day we did the little pig market. And we finished a little later than usual that night, about 10 minutes to 12, I think. I was thinking I might stop in here for a beer before I went on home. Well, right up there, just past the turnoff from 101, he pointed north through the rain-streaked window. I was cruising along, listening to the radio and trying to see the road through the rain. It was raining just about like tonight. I felt something like a big gust of wind. The pickup just sort of lurched a little bit. Kind of like the wind pushed me over on the road a little. Outside the tavern, the wind howled like a demon, shouldering its noisy way down the street, shaking buildings and rocking automobiles. It bashed the tavern door open, slammed it shut again 3 or 4 times in rapid succession, and blasted rain up against the front of the old building with a sound like wet buckshot falling on a tin roof. A shiver passed through the little crowd when the tavern lights flickered, went out, and then came on again, permanently dimmed. The cowboy reached for his beer, took a long drink, then droned on through the storm. I drove on along, and I started wondering about how much gas I had, because I meant to get some in Seaside, but I forgot until just then. The instrument panel light on my pickup truck never worked, and I could see all the indicators by turning on the overhead light in the cab. He paused and took another sip from his beer mug. Well, sir, he looked at me and gave it to a little shudder. Still gives me a turn to remember it. I turned on the light in the cab. Turned out I had plenty of gas. And then as I reached up to turn out the light, I heard this little noise, sounding like some sort of scratching or rubbing on the outside of the cab. I glanced in the mirror, and there was a mummy looking through the window at me. He shook his head as though he still had trouble believing what his eyes had told him that night. I thought maybe the mirror was playing tricks on me, rainy night and all. So I turned like this. He turned and looked over his shoulder. There he was, just a couple of inches away, riding along with me in the back of my pickup. When I turned around to look, we were almost cheek to cheek. He had his face pressed up against the back window of the pickup on the outside. When my face touched the window on the inside and I saw him there, I nearly died. He shuddered and shook his head. Then I thought, maybe it's a joke. Halloween was gone, but maybe some of them jokers, he gestured around the room, was having himself a little laugh. I was pretty sure my pickup bed was empty when I left Seaside, though. And then when I looked up again, I knew it wasn't a joke. His eyes, he shivered again, drained his mug, were just little holes from the bandages with nothing inside but his mouth. That was different. I could see lips, red lips, kind of dripping something. Maybe saliva or rain or blood, but it was the night, and here he stopped for a long drink of the beer that appeared on the bar behind him. He wiped his mouth on the back of his arm and continued. Well, I figured I was safe. Windows rolled up, moving down the highway, him out there and me in the cab. Figured I'd just roll on into town and ease up here in front of the tavern where I knew there'd be a bunch of people and we'd all have a look at this guy. Just got that all figured out when I was feeling kind of smug, and kabam! It sounded like a baseball hit the window just behind my head. He busted a little hole in it, then hit it again, and the whole thing just caved in. Big chunks of safety glass all over the cab. We were eyeball to eyeball then. I could see the lights of the town coming up, and I just held on and hoped I can get there. He grunted and growled and reached for me with a big bandaged hand. Got a hold of my head, twisted me so I could hardly see where I was going. I couldn't get away, so I just tried to keep her on the road. Just as I got in the town, he let go. It was like a gust of wind, like happened when I figured that he jumped in the cab, and he was gone. I came sliding up here outside the tavern, drove up on over the curb, and took out 2 parking meters before I got stopped. I was out of the pickup in a flash and busted in here all sick and shaky. Told these guys I needed help to go look at my pickup. They all went out there, but he was gone. Slick as it was, he disappeared. All he left behind was a hunk of that bandage, all bloody and smelling like rotten meat. So, I mean, if you're a small child and you're reading this story and you're just outside Cannon Beach, you don't want to go outside?
Don't. Yeah. Oh, well.
Put up the good
geez.
pictures while I continue this.
Holy cow.
The wind howled and rattled the old building, and Maud breathed a long sigh in a momentary stillness. The rain slackened a little. No one in our little group said anything for a few minutes. The cowboy leaned up against the bar and contemplated his beer. Emmett finally broke the silence. Now, there are lots of people who will tell you they've seen Bandage Man, he said. He's jumped on other pickups, station wagons, and even a sports car, too. A couple times he's left broken windows and a shred or two of that awful bandage. He always talks right about the same place, that stretch of road out toward 101, and he's always disappeared as soon as the car got to Cannon Beach. He's never seen during the day either, but usually he pops up late on stormy nights like tonight. There are exceptions, the cowboy broke in. Yeah, I'm getting to that, Emmett assured him. 2 exceptions. One evening, this fellow came in here and said he saw a mummy carry away a hitchhiker. The fellow was scared to death and he'd already called the police, but of course they couldn't find anything. The man, he was from California, driving down the coast on his way home, said he saw this hitchhiker, a young man, and he drove on by him a ways before he decided to give him a lift. He said that as he passed him, he saw something odd behind him in the forest up there. Thought he saw a mummy up in the trees, but it was almost dark, and that's impossible anyway. So he didn't give it another thought. He'd never heard of the Bandage Man. But then he stopped and backed up to give that young fellow a lift. When he looked in his rearview mirror, there was that mummy. Said it was about twice as big as a hitchhiker. That mummy walked up behind the young fellow, mashed down on him like with a big bandaged arm, and the hitchhiker folded up like a chair. Last the man from California saw, he said, Bandage Man tucked that hitchhiker under one arm like a loaf of bread and strolled off into the dark. Hitchhikers avoid the stretch of road now, especially on stormy nights like tonight.
Riggs asked the question, did anybody go hunting for that hitchhiker?
Obviously not.
Chicken
All
shits.
right. All right. People from around here, Alma said quietly, avoid that stretch of road any time after dark, whatever the weather. Yep, agreed the cowboy as another shiver danced up his spine. Tell them what happened to you, Emmett. I was just fixing to do that, Emmett said, placing his beer mug on the table and wiping the foam from his mustache. Maud groaned and the wind howled. The building shook, seemed to bend before the onslaught of the storm. Bandage Man hates Emmett, Alma said with a grin, but he loves Maud. Maud groaned again, and the wind momentarily held his sodden breath while Emmett began his story. I live up on the old dump road, he said, and some people think Bandage Man lives up there somewhere too. I don't know why they think that. I've never even seen him, except this one particular night I'm going to tell you about. It was the winter of 1979, December, coldest winter for 40 years. Maud wheezed affirmatively from under the table. Everything was froze up for miles up and down the coast. Icicles on the cliffs, waterfalls frozen solid, ice on all the creeks, and every night when it got even colder, trees exploded like they'd been dynamited. It was so cold. He snuggled under his down vest to ward off the memory. That spit froze before it hit the ground. Bears usually spend the part of the winter curled up in some hole, warm and cozy as can be. That's why it was real strange when dogs began to turn up missing. All over town, dogs were disappearing, but especially up by where I live, on the old dump road. It was like an epidemic. Old Maud here is the only dog for a mile in any direction from our house who survived that winter. Ain't that right, Maud? Emmett reached down and scratched the old hound affectionately, and she almost didn't make it. Maud snored and wheezed in response as the wind roared around the tavern, and the little group of listeners drew even closer, like moths around the quiet flame of Emmett's drawl. Another year, we'd probably have figured that some old renegade bear was taking her dogs, but it was so cold that no bear would have missed out on hibernating that winter. At least that's my theory. Besides, his eyes gleamed in the yellowish light, there was other evidence. Those awful bandages. People were finding rotten bandages all around after their dogs disappeared. He leaned forward in his chair and Maud became momentarily alert. And footprints, Emmett continued. We found only human footprints, big ones. Then there was poor old Madge, he said sadly, pulling an enormous red handkerchief from his back pocket and dabbing gently at the corners of his eyes. Maud groaned again, louder than before. Madge was Maud's best friend, our neighbor up there by the dump for years. They were puppies together. Emmett blew his nose and took another swipe at his eyes. About the second or third day of this deep freeze, Maud and I were out for a walk when we found her body, or what was left of her body. It was terrible. She was ripped apart and almost all eaten up. All that was left was some bones and a few shreds of her hide. Even her head was gone. There were human tooth marks on what was left, and right near where we found her was one of those stinking bandages. Emmett sat back and took a long drink of his beer. Maud groaned ever so sadly, and the wind renewed its attack on the old building, bashing the tavern door open and slamming it shut, emitting great wet gusts of the storm. Well, Emmett continued, his composure regained, the story got round that Bandage Man was eating the dogs. I believed it. We got together and went looking for him. But of course we couldn't find him. He paused for a long drink, then with a deep sigh, he found us, Maud and me. The wind whistled around the building, and Maud groaned, loud this time, and barked a little whimpering kind of bark as she tried to shove herself further under Emmett's chair. The lights flickered, dimmed again, and stayed there. Outside, something crashed, maybe a garbage can blown over in the gale. I glanced toward the windswept window and thought I caught a glimpse of someone or something moving past. It was a lot colder than tonight, Emmett continued, but it was windy just like now. Howling and rolling around our house, but we were snug as two bugs in a rug. I like nights like that. Built a big fire in the stove and we just settled back with the newspaper. Now, Maud, she's not much of a watchdog, but I noticed that she was mightily nervous that night. I thought maybe she was just upset about Madge, but she was moaning and wheezing and barking a little, like she'd been doing tonight. Didn't think anything of it, though. We're going to take a little break here.
Yeah.
The dog is reacting like she never does, except for tonight. It's kind of like tonight.
Right? I mean...
Can we see what's coming up ahead?
No. Gee, dog's saying, hey, something's out there. Keep an eye out. Prepare yourself.
And everybody's just drinking their beer and just
don't be
zoning out. All right, Maud barked again, louder this time. Something lightning maybe flashed out in the rain, illuminating the street for an instant. The rain drummed louder and louder on the old building. I just gotten comfortable, Emmett said, and I was sitting there listening to the wind. Maud was mighty nervous. She was looking right at the window, not 3 feet from where we sat, growling and barking, not like her at all, I said. Quiet, Maud, then looked at the window to see what she was barking at. Maud was barking louder now at the Rain Street Tavern window. I think we all know what you should be doing. In the Unleashed playbook, if weird things happening, I think we all know what to do next.
Come on. Have a little party. Stay away from windows and doors.
Well, sit way in the back. All right. Well, sir, Emmett Pa shook his head. I looked out that window, smack at that mummy. Yes, sir. He was standing right there on my front porch, looked at me and Mon. Emmett took a long drink of his beer, and the wind redoubled its attack on the tavern, bashed the old wooden door open once again. When he saw me looking out that window, it just exploded. He smacked it with one of those big bandaged paws and busted it all over the room. Glass everywhere. He leaned through the hole and reached for Maud. He got his hand on her, but she was fighting like crazy, biting and tearing those rags. That mummy was having a time hanging onto her. Hush, Maud! The old dog was barking frantically now, eyes fixed on the tavern window and toenails flailing at the floor as she tried to back away further under Emmett's chair. Emmett's eyes bulged and his nostrils flared as he moved forward to the edge of his chair. I jumped up out of my chair and tripped, or he tripped me, not sure which. I was trying to get my shotgun. When I looked back, he hooked Maud, and it looked like he was going to drag her out the window. She was fighting like mad, though, weren't you, girl? He leaned down and patted the top of her head. Maud was growling quietly now, her eyes still fixed on the tavern window. Hush, girl, he ain't going to get us. Pause for reflection.
No.
The storm worked its way up to a new peak now. The whole building quivered around us, and the lights dropped another notch. I got across the room on my knees, grabbed that gun, and let him have it. Emmett stood and shoulder-leveled an imaginary shotgun at the far end of the tavern. Never said nothing, just shot. Blam! Couldn't miss at that range, blew a hole right through him. Maud growled and barked even louder now and renewed her effort to back under Emmett's chair. I glanced toward the window as the old man paused and saw nothing more than rain and perhaps a flash of light. The old man sat down again. He dropped Maud and looked at me for a second, then he grabbed Maud again and I let him have the other barrel. Blam! 2 big holes, but that didn't seem to be anything inside. He turned around and ran off toward the old dump, loose ends of bandages flapping in the wind. Never seen him since. Maud was going crazy now, and so was the storm. The old dog growled and scratched and barked, her eyes glued into the wood frame window. The wind raged across the old building, bashing the door open once again. Outside, the lights in the old tavern flickered again and went out. Darkness. Outside in the storm, another flash of lightning blared through the dark, illuminating the rain-swept street, and in the window, a ghastly silhouette. The old tavern window caved in with a terrible crash. A powerful smell of rotten meat rode in the tavern on the storm. The grisly figure lurched through the opening and groped in the darkness toward Maud and Emmett. Tables, chairs, beer mugs, and bodies crashed to the floor as the members of our little group dived apart, each of us scrambling to get as far as possible from the foul-smelling monster. Maud's fierce growl rose quickly in the darkness to a terrified shriek, then subsided to a gurgle. Then a sound like the breaking of a tree limb, and she was quiet. Blows fell on some, then the grim silhouette passed through the opening in the storm. Pacific Power and Light Company said later that the lights were out for less than 5 minutes in Cannon Beach that night, but to us it seemed like 5 hours. When power was restored, we crawled from our hiding places and peered sheepishly at one another. Maud was gone. Emmett was gone. Only a little patch of blood and a couple of clumps of dog hair suggested they'd ever been more than figments in a dream. Also gone, though we didn't discover it till later, was the yellow newspaper clipping. On a glass sliver in the window frame hung a shred of blood-stained, rotten bandage. An ear that could have been Maud's turned up on the sidewalk at the north end of Cannon Beach a couple of days after the storm, but no other trace of Maud or Emmett have ever been found. Bandage Man was never captured. During the very next storm, though, perhaps a week later, a shaken motorist stumbled frantically out of the darkness into Bill's tavern, claiming that a giant mummy had attacked his car near Highway 101 turnoff. Everyone told him he was crazy.
Yep. Never.
Bridget says, horror movie rule. Ignore a dog's instincts. Our podcast is it's more than just chaos. It's giving you the rules to survive. So if you're traveling down Highway 101 on a dark and stormy night, make sure you got a piece on you. Put it in the seat next to you. Don't blast him at the chest. Go straight for the head.
And for God's sakes, don't stop. Just keep on going. But now, is that the only story of the bandagement actually attacking anyone in town, coming after him in town? Because most of
That's the other one.
stories and rumors are just off the turnoff there. You know, mostly teenagers and things of that nature.
Yeah, this is the only one I've been able to find that it's him coming actually into town, which is why when Bill and I were looking at it, Bill's Tavern is all redone. It's definitely not that boarded up old building. I would say the way it's described in the book sounds like the bridge tender.
Okay.
So we've got to put ourselves. Yeah, we got to think the bridge tender, wooden, old, dimly lit. What it is now is they have really redone Cannon Beach in the last couple decades. It's a high-end seaside, pretty much. Think the promenade of Seaside.
How far is Bill's Tavern from the turnoff? Because, to be honest, it's been a while since I've been down towards Cannon Beach. I tend not to head that way. I go the other direction. Not because of the bandage, man.
Bill's Tavern is Bill's Tavern is in the very center of their promenade, which is kind of in the center of town.
So the
turnoff. Well, if we go back to the 80s, late 70s, Cannon Beach was not a happening town. It was not as built up as it is today. So,
okay, so in theory, then back then, where Bill's Tavern is, could have been like the edge of town, and then it's just kind of built up around it. Okay.
Yeah,
so
because
that sounds a little more logical.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our, if we think like Gerhardt is a pretty big town. It's
Gerhardt's not that big. What are you talking about? You blink and you miss Gerhardt.
But it's high-rise houses. It's expensive houses. It's not your basic little nothing town that you're going to pass through. I mean, Cannon Beach back in the 80s was literally just it was not as spread out as it is now. They have really taken a lot of lands to,
make
gift shops
into what it is now. Yeah,
a tourist destination.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go back to late 70s, early 80s, then I'm pretty sure Bill's Tavern was that old rickety building. Now it is right on the main promenade. Everything is new, fresh. So when we went and we shot the video,
You know what gets me is how most towns that have like cryptids or they celebrate cryptids. This town, Cannon Beach, wants doesn't even want to acknowledge it. It's like no, it
Well, I
never
mean, they
happened.
did put out the T-shirt.
When did they do that? God, now I'm
I
gonna
don't
want
know.
it. Now I'm gonna want the damn T-shirt.
But like, yeah, I mean, the other article here is other people have been going down, doing spirit box sessions on the highway, trying to get in touch with the bandage man.
So now you're
Um,
saying that they're trying to embrace it now after not wanting to?
well, when we were at Bill's Tavern, this was 2016, I think it was. It's been a while since we were there, but we had asked the waitress, "Hey, what's the deal with the bandage man?" Because we're like, "Yeah, this can't be the same Bill's that's in the book. This ain't the same Bill's Tavern that's in the book. This place is too."
Right.
Cannon Beach. Cannon Beach reminds me of Sun Valley, Idaho, where everything is very upscaled. It's to draw in the tourists. But we asked the waitress, "What do you know about the bandage man?" She goes, "That's nothing. That's just it's crazy talk."
Well,
So I
here's my,
mean, like Devil's Lake, we've got the horrible sea creature, so we're gonna put up Puff the Magic Dragon.
right. But here's my two questions I was gonna ask you. Okay, so one, nobody knows for sure if it was a logger. There's reports. Most reports, reporting accounts say it's a logger. There's some reports saying it's a firefighter. Some reports saying it's a electrician. But nobody knows who this person that actually died and the ambulance and all that. There's no record of that I've been able to find of an ambulance, even having wrecked after picking up this logger or whoever that was all wrapped up, quote, in the bandages. Nobody knows his name. You would think if an ambulance was to arrive at a scene, would have some sort of information. Granted, it'd be Jane Doe or John Doe, or in this case, but I'm sure somebody would have reported a brother, father, or husband missing. It makes absolutely no sense
Well,
how all this,
well, that's the thing is,
how can you not have a record? I mean,
well,
I need explanation.
that's why
here,
this
'cause
is one
I
of the
can't.
unknown cryptids.
So it's an unknown cryptid, okay, but it's local lore or whatnot. So it's almost like saying,
Local
okay,
lore.
local lore. It's like, okay, say, since we're pretty much in the skeptic's corner, that in a sense, this is all BS. It's just something made up by the locals. But something in me tells me that there actually was some sort of an accident or whatever, and this actually happened. But then, on the other hand, okay, if Emmett or whatever his name was, there's these reports of pieces of bandage. Why couldn't they have produced that as evidence to show people, hey, this is from the bandage man attacking me while I'm trying to drive into town, or eating a dog or whatever. You've got all this and
Well, okay,
nothing is being produced.
well, since we're in Skeptic's Corner, I'm going to quote from the Wild Bill. that he was saying maybe this was one of those local legends that got started because people were going off to the old 101 turnoff, Makeout Corner. So maybe that's what you do is you start a story of, hey, yeah, I wouldn't go up there, kids.
Trying
You
to
go
scare
up there and the
kids off.
bandage man's going to get you.
Yeah, because didn't they actually kind of name a road after him? Bandage Man Road or something like that?
Yeah, a bandage man lane or something like that.
Yeah.
So on to
Okay.
generate money. They
So-
should start a bandage man festival.
Yes. My God Almighty, you could dress up
But-
as the Bandage Man the best. I'm sorry. I almost want to say I have to. There's some part of this that leads me to believe that something is actually there going on, but I'm torn, really, 50-50.
Well, here's another thought for you. Now we get back into my speech last year of tulpas, creating and manifesting a spirit by a continued discussion and having multiple people believe in it. So, what if it became a local legend? And then after the years of everybody trying to believe in it and going, I want to see the Bandage Man, we have created a tulpa of the Bandage Man. And now Cannon Beach is going, there's nothing there.
Making sense now. The Topa route. God dang. I didn't even put two and two on that. All right.
We've got all these paranormal investigators that go down the Highway 101, sit on the sideline.
Hey, we're going to be down at the coast here in a couple weeks. We should just do that little road trip down 101 towards Cannon Beach.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be stormy and nasty, and Bandage Man will jump in the back and we'll take out our 9mm and fill it full of holes and drag it to the Bill's Tavern and be like, here, everybody, it's real.
Yeah. That ain't gonna happen. You know it.
I don't know.
You're gonna be busy that in a couple weekends. That weekend that we'll be down there. If he doesn't show in the day, man, you're busy at night.
The investigation Friday night, the investigation Saturday night.
Oh, we got Sunday night.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Now I got to be home. Possibly.
Possibly.
Maybe we'll do it next year. We'll next year, 2026 Ghost Conference, says we don't have booths. We're not doing investigations next year.
Yeah. Not at
Maybe
all.
we'll get in the truck. Zip down 101.
Yeah. Take those corners, let that thunder, lightning, raining, and yeah. Sounds good to me.
You bring your gun, I'll bring my gun, and we'll just make it our bitch. Sammy says road trip.
Oh, more the merrier.
Oh,
We need someone to document our trophy, so to speak.
Yes, everybody. Anybody that us with guns looking for cryptids, maybe that should be our new thing. We're gonna go out and hunt cryptids and hang their heads on the wall.
No, that's all right.
All right. Hey, Bridget wants to go too. Why not? Everybody hop in the truck.
More the
We got enough
merrier.
room.
Hey, we have willing sacrifices. They want to come along. We sacrifice. We get sacrificial lambs. Sorry, we won't do that. Never. Oh man.
Well, we have survived another night of chaos, technical issues. As for
too bad.
Banishment, it is a good story. That story always was one of my favorites out of the book. Next week will be another Oregon. Don't know what it's going to be. The 22nd, we're going to be doing probably a YouTube live 2-minute interviews, walking around the conference,
Yeah.
talking to people, giving them 2 minutes to talk.
And the chaos continues. He's going in and out. You there? Doc.
The
Oh. He's. I think we should be
chaos will
calling it,
always
man.
continue.
Oh man.
Well, we'll make everybody hate us
Oh yeah.
by the end of it.
For sure. And we lost Doc. So on that note, we are out of here. See you all next week.